All right, there's three big steps in doing collision work or body work. So you've got basically fixing your dents and your body damage. Then you've got basically from your body work to your primer, then from your primer to your paint. So that's really your three big steps that you got to progress through. So we're going to talk about going from your body filler to your primers. So what we've got here, this is a '06 Chrysler 300. This is a rebuild. This ain't an insurance job. But what we've done, we've took a set of doors off of 2010. Now the big issue there is all the wiring, the window motors, all that good stuff is different. So everything's got to be gutted out of the '06 door and put into the 2010 door to make it work. So what we've had here, we've had two pretty good sized parking lot dings on this door, and they've already been body worked and filled and everything like that. So you can see we've actually put body filler in it. Then on top of that, there's a little bit of icing in it. So we've worked this down. It's all good and flat. The only bad thing about working on newer model stuff and cars like this is you get a lot of flex in the doors when you're trying to work on them. So you need to really pay close attention to how you do your body work. You can also see when I was doing my body work, I taped off this piece of molding right here. Basically, that way I didn't take a piece of 80 grit or 40 grit and tear my molding up. So the main thing is, like I said, once you get this good and flat, you've either sanded it with 40 starting out maybe, or you've worked your way up to 80. So this really needs to be finished out with 180 because when you get into the priming stage of everything, it's hard to take 80 grit sand scratches out with just 2K primer. We're going to talk about a couple different types of primers, talk about the spray guns, what size tips, what size kind of air pressure you need to be using. But what I've done with this, the main thing is get everything clean before you start working on anything. So I've cleaned this off, this section I'm working on right here beforehand. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to feather all this out with 180. That way my primer fills my sand scratches, and I'll have all this cleaned off beforehand. When you're doing any type of insurance work though, you want to be make sure you're getting paid for what you're doing. So, we're going to take this belt molding off. We're going to take the door handle off, which is considered hardware. We're going to take the mirror off, the belt line molding, and when we get ready to paint and prime this door, that way it looks really good when we're done instead of just doing a half job and taping everything off like most people do. If you was to take this off, you'd probably still be able to see gold up underneath the door handle after I painted it. And just like this belt molding, if it ever starts falling off the door, you're going to have a big gold stripe underneath it. So that's why we're going to take everything off. Now, too, if you're doing an insurance job, you ought to be getting paid to take all this off. So you're probably talking an hour worth of work, $50 an hour. That's $50 an hour you lost if you ain't charging to take this off and put it back on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get this cleaned off. We'll talk about some primers. When we come back, I'll have this sanded down, explain to you what I sanded it down with. And like I said, we'll take this body work all the way up to primer and get it ready for paint work. When you think of primers, try to think of them as another type of filler. So we use body filler to fill dents. So by putting all the sand scratches into it, we've actually broke the surface and basically made scratches all of it. So what's going to happen is the primer's going to fill these scratches, and that's going to get us up to a smoother and smoother and smoother level until we can get where we can paint and it'll look right. So when we come back next time, like I said, I should have all this prepped up, and I'll show you how to tape it off to try not to make any hard lines. We're in the process. We're going from our Bondo work or our body filler work up to our primer work. So the last time this door had a bunch of stuff on it, and what we've done, the main thing is keep everything clean while you're doing it. So it was cold when we brought the car in, so we didn't get to wash the car, but before we done this work in here, we had this cleaned off, and before we sanded the rest of what we got sanded down, we cleaned it off too. What happens if you don't clean it off and you got a bunch of gunk, grime, and all that stuff is basically you take your sandpaper and just, you're making scratches, so you're rubbing that gunk and the grime into the scratches. So that's something you don't want to do because when it comes out to your paintwork, that stuff can come out to the top and cause fish eyes and blisters and stuff like that. So we've took this door molding off the side, and you can see what I was talking about earlier, why people do the things they do. And what has happened, somebody's fixed this door and didn't take the door molding off when they painted it, so we've got this big nice, the door was actually probably the color of the car to begin with if you look right here, and you can see the E-coat under that. So like I said, we've took all this stuff off, the door handles and stuff off. We're going to mask it up, we're going to get ready to paint, or not paint, but get it ready to prime. and we're going to be using the 2K primer we talked about earlier. So we're going to put 2 pretty medium wet coats on all the body work on the car. We're just going to focus on the door. We ain't going to look at nothing else really. But we're going to put 2 coats on this, and this should, this has been brought up to 180. So this should actually prime out and be ready to paint. And we feathered all this out hoping to catch it. So we're going to prime all the way down through here too and this. So actually we'll probably be priming from here to here. Now what I done around the car where we've done body work, you want to sand out away from your body work, because remember, if it's slick it won't stick. So what we've done, we've looked at our sand scratches. This is our body work, but we've got sand scratches out to here and up to here and down to here. So we went out 5 or 6 inches on each side of our sand scratches and sanded. That way if any primer gets over here where there ain't none, it's gonna stick to it. The thing about priming, you need to cover your car up, cover your vehicle up, cover anything in the garage you don't want primer on. And do this right, because when you do it, just like if you don't tape your hose up and your mirrors, and down in this jam right here, you're gonna have primer blow by into these orifices. And if the wind is down and it goes through this hose, it's gonna get on the window. So you're gonna cause yourself a lot more work. The job ain't gonna look as professional. So when we tape this up, you need to tape it the right way. And prep work is 90% of paint work. If you prep something right, it's gonna look good. If you prep it wrong, it ain't gonna stick, it's gonna look bad, you're gonna have all kinds of problems. All right, another thing I wanna touch on real quick is this door molding right here. It's on the side of the car and we took it off. So we actually cut it off, and you can see the paint come off on the back of it. But we took an eraser wheel and got the adhesive off after we removed it. One thing about these door molds and stuff like that, they're made out of urethane, so they're real floppy. When you put them up, don't lay them on anything that is gonna not let it lay flat. Because if it lays like this and you go back to put it on the car, it's gonna be bent like this and you're trying to put it on. And when it's got that hump in it, it's hard to make it stick in the middle. So lay it flat, lay it on concrete, lay it on something, and make sure you cover it up. That way you don't get no overspray on it. We're gonna mask this off real quick. I'm gonna show you how to mask the square out for this primer work. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can turn around and actually, you're gonna find basically the edge of your sand scratches. So that's about right here. And we're gonna come out to the edge here, come out to the edge here, and just run across the bottom here. So after I sanded this down, I took a scuff pad to everything to make sure everything had a little bit of bite to it. That way stuff will stick. So there's 2 ways you can lay your tape. You can lay your tape straight along the edge, like this right here. And we try not to do this a lot, because what happens is when you prime, and you're priming up to this line. So that primer's building a high edge right here. And what's gonna happen is you get done priming, you pull your tape off, you're gonna have this big, hard, buried line right there that's hard to get out. So, and just the same as your body work being feathered out, your primer needs to be feathered out too. Because if we go down through here and you can still see a faint line and it ain't feathered real good after the primer gets done, what's gonna happen is you're gonna paint it and you're gonna see a shadowed line across there. So, one thing you can do is take your 3/4 masking tape, and I usually don't do it like this, but I'm gonna do it just so I can show you. Usually when I lay tape, I pull it out to here, I break it off. I don't tear it off and then try to stick it. So you can take your masking tape and you can fold it in half like this right here, all the way down through here. Or you can take this masking tape and basically say this top edge right here, you can kind of stick at top edge and take your masking tape and fold it up. So after I do that, I like to run a piece of 3/4 across the top just to keep that flipped up. It wastes a little bit of tape, but it's a little easier when you go back to bag the car to keep the overspray off of it. So I'm just now, I took the tape, the sticky sides out right here. I took a piece of 3/4 tape and attached it to the car on top of that. So what this has done, this has actually made, you know, the surface is like this, you know, you got a flat panel and your tape's rubbed like this right here, so it's sticking on top. So instead of having a hard line, just like a wave in the ocean, your primer's gonna go in here and it's kind of gonna buffer into this zone. So you ain't gonna get a real hard line. It's gonna be a lot easier to sand when you're done. Now, there's a plastic piece in here. I've not took it out, but I've took the bolts out of it or the pins out of it. That way it's kind of sitting back. A lot of people just try to run tape, you know, up to the edge of here, and it's gonna make problems, so try not to do that. But I'm gonna use 2-inch tape for this. See how much we need. So I'm actually gonna pull this edge up right here a little bit so I can actually start above it. And what I'm trying to do is work this tape in behind this door there. And it's gonna be kind of hard because it's got actually a body line in it, but alright, so now we got the tape in there, but here's the problem. The tape ain't sticking to the back of the door. So if I just left it like this, sprayed, you know, primer on it, what more likely is gonna happen, there's gonna be enough pressure coming out of my primer gun and my air gun to actually blow that back, let primer go back in. So everybody's got a debit card in their pocket. I'm gonna use a Harbor Freight card, but I can take this credit card, push in this hole, and press that tape up against the back of this door. So now that's got that stuck. So that's got me sealed off right there. Lay this in, seal it off right there. Same thing on the back of this door. I took a scuff pad down both edges of the door. That way if any primer hits it, I know it's gonna seal it. So I can take my 2-inch tape, which I've got the door off because I've got to prime this jam over here. I can take my 2-inch tape, lay in there like this right here. And you know it's sealed up, it ain't gonna let it get inside. So the next thing I do, I'm gonna run a piece of tape here and run one across the bottom. Then I'm gonna pull my plastic over, cut it out, and I'll be ready to prime. Alright, so what we've done, we've actually done what they call bagging a car. So we pulled a plastic. This is 16-foot plastic, so it should reach side to side on most cars and trucks. They make 12-foot kind of watch about it, because a lot of times that 12-foot don't reach the floor. But now, what we've done, we pulled it across, and you can see I finished taping the bottom and around this door handle, so these are covered. You know, that's sealed off down there, that's sealed off down here. Now, what you want to watch, you're going to pull this plastic over the car and it's clear and it's all well and good. Then you're going to pick up a razor blade and start cutting your plastic out so you can take this plastic to the car. What I've seen a lot of new people do, they're heavy-handed with a razor blade. So, if I've got this up here and you know I've got a layer of tape on the car, and I come up here and I cut my plastic with my razor blade. Well, if I cut too deep, I've cut my tape underneath. And what happens there is, you know, I've got all these scratches down here, so I'm going to prime all this and be done with it. Then I'm going to pull this tape up and I'm going to have a big cut scratch from my razor blade all the way down here. So one way to practice, you know, and trying to get better at doing this and gauging yourself with a razor blade is you can take a piece of 2-inch tape and what I've done, I've laid a piece of 2-inch tape down with a piece of 2-inch tape over top of it, made a line on the top piece. So to practice, if you're worried about this, and like I said, this can cause a lot of issues because what happens is people don't pay attention and they get all this worked out, then they just go ahead and seal and paint the car, and then they see the big razor blade scratches in it. So one thing you can do is practice like this right here, and what you're wanting to do is cut through the top layer of tape and not cut through the bottom. So if I don't cut through the bottom, that means I don't cut all the way down to the metal. So, and always use good razor blades. So, I didn't cut through far enough right here. So now the way that you can tell if you've actually cut through this bottom piece or not is to actually pick it up and take it off. and you don't have to look at the panel. All you gotta do is look at the tape. And if you didn't cut through the tape, you didn't cut into the panel. So that's a good way to practice. I know $2-inch tape is high. It's about $8 a roll, but you know, practicing with an $8 roll of tape can save you $100 worth of work after you mess up and go ahead and paint one and have all kinds of issues with it. So like I said, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to prime this door, we're going to prime the rest of the car, and we'll show you the process of priming. The main thing you want to do when you prime is gauge your gun. I already talked about in another video about this paint gun here. This is the PPS2 system, so we ain't changed the tips out yet. But basically when you set your gun up, you know, all guns are different, but they basically got these two basic settings. So you've got your fluid feed, basically how much primer is going to be coming out of the gun, and you got your pattern. So your pattern's either going to be fanned out real big or down to a narrow spot, you know. So you want a pretty good size open fan pattern when you spray this. You want your fluid coming out pretty good. We'll get into that in another video. But the main thing is, a good rule of thumb is keep a paint gun about this far away. So just open your hands up like this. That far away is what you want. Now, what you want to do when you're going up through here is basically, what a lot of guys want to do, they want to start up here. Then they don't cover this bottom, or they start down here and don't cover this top. So basically with every pass we make, we want to basically make a double pass. So what you want to do is take the end of your air cap and your two little nubs right here and line them up right here. So you go down through here spraying, you're going to keep that 6 to 8 inches away. You're going to run, you don't want to run a panel and get to the end and flip. So you want to start on the outside, finish on the outside, and keep that line. So if our next paint line, you know, if our fan pattern stops right here, you want to take this tip, line up right here, and shoot down through here again. You really want to learn how to paint like a robot. That way you keep a constant pattern. And learning these basic painting skills is going to help you a lot when you start basing and clearing. Especially when you start spraying metallics and when you start clearing and trying not to get dry spray on something. Even if you can't see up underneath something, if you're keeping your basic spray patterns, you should be able to spray it right. So, like I said, we're going to use 2K primer on this and prime it up, and then we'll peel it off and see what it looks like and talk about it and how we're going to finish it out. Alright, we're going to talk about primer real quick. Alright, we're going to talk about primer real quick. There's many different types of primer, and there's thousands of brands of primer. In production work you go to is really, when you're going over body work, is 2K primer. Now, back in the day, there's two different types of primers when you go into a parts store, which is called 1K and 2K. So let's go back a little bit to the 80s and earlier, and really up into the 90s and earlier. So the first, you have to excuse the way this cans look, but this is 1K primer. So this is primer, like I said, it's 1K. It's a high solids acrylic lacquer primer surfacer is what it is. This is a high-tech brand. This is a cheap brand. But this does not have a hardener in it. This only has lacquer in it. This is what you reduce it down with to make it sprayable. Okay, so this is what they call a 1K. It does not have a hardener in it. Now, any paint can you get, or a primer can you get, 90% of them, 95% of them is going to have how they mix, how to spray them, and all that on the back side. So you can actually see this one right here on the back of the can, you know, all the way down this row. So it tells us to mix 2 parts 7355, which is part number for this primer, with 3 parts high quality lacquer thinner or urethane reducer. We need to put on 1 to 3 wet coats, let it dry for 30 minutes at 77 degrees, and you can sand it. Now, the flash time between coats is 5 to 10 minutes. So what the flash time is the wait time between basically your coats of primer, coats of paint, coats of clear, whatever. So you'll hear flash time a lot. But flash time gives basically you enough time for when you lay a primer down on something, you've got that lacquer thinner mixed in with this, you know, you got 2 parts primer, 3 parts lacquer thinner. So that's going to give that lacquer thinner enough time to vent off. Because what happens if you lay it down too quick, you're going to trap your first layer with your second layer. Well, something's going to give because that lacquer thinner needs to get out. So it's going to go out the top, we're going to force out the bottom and cause peel issues. Now, what we're going to talk about, this is the Nason brand Axalta, which used to be DuPont. So this is their cheaper line. So this is what they call a 2K primer, 2K urethane primer. This is great. I think they've got theirs in beige or tan, whatever you want to call it, gray and black. A lot of primer companies have got away from using tan. I don't know, it just acts funny. But this is really your go-to anymore, unless you start getting into specialty primers, which is epoxy, self-etching primers, stuff like that, high build primers, UV primers. Like I said, we'll get into another video and go through them, but this is what we're going to use today on this card. This is a 2K urethane primer. So the reason it is a 2K primer is because it mixes with a hardener. Okay, so on the back of the can there's a little bit of primer over this right now, but basically it mixes 4 to 1. So you're going to have 4 parts, 40, let's see here, 421 I think -19. Yeah, I got it right. 421-19. That's its primer part number, and it's going to mix with 1 part 483-87, which is your activator. So it's going to be 4 parts primer, 1 part activator. Now the thing about this, once you activate it, it's going to dry. It's a chemical reaction that's going to make this dry. Now this whole 1K right here, there ain't nothing in it to harden it, so it's going to air dry. All right. Now about 4 hours you can sand this pretty good. It might still come up on you. You might have to let it dry more than that. But this is what we're going to use on this card today. Is a Nason brand gray primer, and like I said, this is kind of everybody's go-to when it comes to priming just your average body work. Talk about what kind of paint gun we're going to use. There's so many types of paint guns you can use. You've got high dollar paint guns that run up into the thousands of dollars. You got cheaper paint guns that, you can go to Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, anywhere, buy them for 20-30 bucks. So, and they're good enough to do, a couple jobs. But if you're going to do this for a living and do it all the time or do it a lot, it's better to buy good stuff. So, what we're going to use right now, and what I use at my shop a lot, is a 3M PPS system. So it don't look like your average paint gun, and we're kind of going to go through it real quick, and I'll show you how it works and all this good stuff. So this is the gun itself. So this is a plastic bodied gun. Now you can see it don't have an air cap on it or anything like that. Don't have a cup on top, don't have a cup on bottom. So a cup on top is usually what they call a gravity feed gun. A cup on the bottom is what they call a siphon feed gun. You've got pressure pot guns in big industrial jobs, but this is what we're going to use. This is a gravity feed gun. So the way this one works, it has interchangeable tips. So for a beginner, this is a real good gun to buy. Basically, because you've got a gun that's got, you can use it for a variety of things, whether it's base clear, primer, or whatever else. And really, the only thing that's getting dirty is this right in here. Then this back in here is catching all your overspray and stuff. So. But they come with different tips. So this is your air cap and your tip and all this good stuff. This is the orange one. It's a 1.4. So when you look on like your primer or your base coat or your clear coat, it's going to tell you what size tip and what pressure to spray with. But it ain't going to tell you on the back of the can use. It's going to tell you on what they call a product data sheet. So anything you use, you need to look at that product data sheet. That way it tells you what to do, what temperature to spray at, what PSI to spray at, with what kind of gun, what kind of tip to spray with. That way you're doing everything right. If you do everything right and you have a problem, it kind of eliminates some of the steps trying to figure out what happened and what went wrong. So right here, like I said, we got a paint gun. We've got a regulator on the bottom of it. We've got a regulator at our air compressor also. So, but here's the tip. So the oranges are 1.4. The clears are 1.8. You've got some 1.3 and 1.2 tips. I think they're blue and green. And you've got a red, I think it's a 2.0 tip. So usually I stick with the 1.4 oranges for base and clear, and I use a clear tip for primers, which is the 1.8, which is kind of universal. Everybody uses 1.8 tips. So you get into a thick, heavy primer though, you're going to go up tip sizes. You can go to 2.0, you know. So you remember, the farther the number goes down, the smaller the hole is in the end of the orifice right here. So you go down to a 1.4, this hole is smaller. You go to a 1.8, you can look at them side by side. They're a lot bigger, 1.8 is. So the PPS system though, you just slide your tip on and it locks back into these little ears right here, and you can actually hear it click. And that's the only really bad thing I don't like about these guns. You got to watch them because these ears dry out, and I broke 2 or 3 of them. But like I said, for $200 you can buy a gun and, you know, have all kinds of different tips and do different things with it. So now I know what you're thinking, is like, where's the paint go? So this is your cup. This is your cup. Okay. So the last thing I sprayed with this was clear coat, and this is what I kind of like about this setup. There's your dried up clear coat. You just toss this away and it's dry. Now you never want to throw anything away that's into the regular trash that's still liquid form. But this hardens up, and you know it's disposable now. So check with your local landfills though before you just start throwing anything into the trash that's paint related, and see how you need to get rid of it. But so this is what like I said, that was clear coat job. So what you've got a plastic cup. So all these numbers right here are made onto this cup, and these are measuring numbers. So if we was going to mix something, say 4 to 1, we'd find us a 4 and mix primer up to a 4, then 1 part hardener. Now like this one right here, it mixes up to 22 ounces. So you could actually double the formula or triple the formula and go say 12 to 3 or 8 to 2 or 4 to 1, or you know, goes up from there. If you can do basic math, you can mix paint or a primer or whatever you want to mix. So but you just turn around and put this in right here, and basically you've got your cup in here and you're ready to start mixing with your mix cup. So that, you know, kind of solves the problem you buying a bunch of mixed cups and then being sloshed around and knocked over and stuff like that. You pour your stuff in there and mix it. And this is the PPS 2. They've got a PPS 1. I think they changed to the PPS 2 because people was knocking the cups and the liners off, or the lids and the liners, and selling them pretty cheap on eBay. But after you get everything mixed, you just put this on, and you got to make sure that lid seals with the liner. If not, you're going to have paint, primer, whatever you got in it all over you. So after you get it sealed, click, it'll lock, so you're good to go there. Now, one thing I've seen done before, and don't do it, don't take your big cup full of paint and turn it over on your gun, because you're going to dump it all out on top of you. Turn your gun upside down and lock it in. Now, turn it up this way, you're ready to spray. So, I'm just going to give you a rundown of this gun. We'll get into some guns, we'll go through them all, and different types, different brands, and show you how one works. But we're going to assume that you know how a paint gun works. But this is what we're going to use. We're going to swap the tips out, put a clear tip on it, we're going to spray primer. And like I said, when we're done, all we got to do is take this off. We can set it to the side, let it dry, whatever, and we're good. We can clean this out, spray through it with a aerosol cleaner. Then you take that tip off, spray this out, clean your needle, wipe it off, clean the back of your gun, you're done. Your gun's clean, and it's a lot quicker than cleaning your old, I ain't gonna say old, but your gravity style, high dollar type guns. So now they make this system, and it'll fit on any gun. You can buy adapters to fit, say, on an Idor, SATA, defibrillous, and you just got an adapter that fits on this. And this still takes a lot of the cleanup process and all that out of the way. You waste a lot of lacquer thinner cleaning your metal cups out. So this is a really good setup for beginners. Like I said, runs about $200. Kind of gives you a lot of versatility, especially if you're just starting out. And what I like about it, and I've taught for 5 years now and watched a lot of new guys clean paint guns. They don't clean them that well. So until you get used to cleaning a gun and stuff, stick with something simple. Use this. If it lasts you a year and it's $200, you've made a good investment. So.
All right, so we're getting ready to prime this car. We've got it all taped up. We've got it sanded. We've got it cleaned off and everything like that. It's probably going to take actually 2 passes to do it, 2 different times. So we're going to put 2 to 3 medium wet coats on this one right now. We're going to use the PPS system we talked about, and we've got a 1.8 tip in the gun. So you can see at the bottom of the car, you know, I've taped it all up and taped up in the fender wells and stuff like that. Taped inside the gas cap, actually took the gas lid off of it. Mainly the reason we do that, I mean, I've seen guys tape them back here, and it's what they'll end up doing, they'll spray primer in the wheel well. So it's just a little less to clean up, and it looks a lot better as the finished product. With your PPS guns, something I didn't mention before, they've got a liner inside of them that strains your paint. Anytime you're doing primer work, you want to take that liner out. Mainly what's going to happen is where the filter is so fine on it, the primer will dry up and no primer will go through it after a couple of minutes. So we're going to use 2K primer on it. We've mixed it 4-to-1. We've mixed about 16 ounces of it, and that should be enough to do everything we need to do on the car at least twice. So we'll turn the fans on and we'll start spraying. Alright, so we got our primer and our gun, got our gun hooked up, got the gun set on about 35 PSI. The way you want to set your gun up is to pull trigger on it. So when I pull trigger, it's going to drop to about 22 to 25 PSI. Like I said, we're going to lay 2 wet coats on this. Make sure you keep your gun distance and keep your overlaps the same, and that'll help you building in basic fundamental kit skills so when you start painting. Alright, so we just got done priming this. We put 2 pretty wet coats on it. It's pretty hot here, so it's going to dry kind of quick. We'll sand it tomorrow or the next day. But, you know, I was talking about how easy these are to clean. So, what you want to do with these PPS guns, turn them upside down, pull the trigger, and that'll let all your material come back out of the top of it, twist your top off. So, now some people use gun cleaner that's in a can. This is carbon choke cleaner. The reason we use carbon choke cleaner because it's safe on plastic parts. I've done this for years. I've never had an issue out of it. But with these PPS guns right here, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put this back into my old can because this is going to harden up and it's going to dry. So I'm just going to spray this down on top of it and then drain it back into here. So I'm just holding my trigger open and spraying down in there. When you take the tip off, you want to push these ears in on both sides, and that'll take that tip off. So I'm just going to spray it out one more time. You always want to watch and make sure don't get this in your eyes. So, you know, that tip's clean. These PPS tips, they'll last, you know, 3 or 4 jobs if you take care of them. So they're about $8 a piece. Other than that, I'm going to shoot this back up into the end of this needle base to get it cleaned off and clean this needle off. Then I'll wipe the back of the gun down, and that's got your gun cleaned real good. Alright, we've got this car primer down. We put 2 coats on it, so what we're going to do next is actually take the car, we'll block sand it down. That'll be in another video. It's going to teach you how to block sand it down. Make sure you get all your sand scratches out. Make sure you got it smooth and it's ready for paint work. Then we're going to get into the sealers, the base coat, and the clear coat after that. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Paint Hooligans. Look us up on Instagram. And like I said, like our videos, and we're going to try to get one out every week.